Yes, let's just go ahead and get that.
Y'all are getting the raw, uncut version right here. Welcome to Shelley's beautiful abode. And
Very
I'm
colorful.
gonna get ready to actually record.
This is laundry that is gonna get washed. I want you all to know this is a regular day in the life of a human being.
It's a regular day.
Because y'all have laundry. I know you all have laundry to do.
We keep it real. We're inviting you into our world. Where's your hot sauce?
Hot sauce? Oh, it's back on the altar.
We poured libations of
and hot sauce on the rug. We've already blessed. We've already had ceremony with Jamaican hot sauce.
Just real quick before we begin. Right here.
Oh my god.
The pretend
oh,
hot sauce.
And the other hot sauce.
Libations. Libations as we are beginning. For the ancestors.
You're too. Oh my goodness. You better be careful because you don't want to offend anyone, and then we'll have to have a whole conversation about cultural appropriation. And
what is your ancestors? I'm so problematic. Get over it.
I have 2 bottles of hot sauce in the room because you have to have hot sauce and 2 jars of honey. One of the jars of honey has THC. Yeah.
Will we keep that or edit that out?
Oh, this is definitely got to be for the B-roll. Behind the scenes. Hashtag BTS.
Okay. Great. I'm going to start recording from my phone.
Okay.
So nervous. Okay. We're setting the intentions. Let's set the intentions that...
We have to adjust the intention so that our heads don't get cut off. That's the first intention.
What is the intention of this interview, of this podcast, before I press record? The real thing.
Beautiful wisdom and authentic truth and realness and just, yeah.
My intention is that whatever it is that we share today reaches whoever needs to hear this medicine, the messages that are channeled through just us being ourselves and releasing the need to perform, even though I believe that the world is a stage and everything we do is a performance, but in a way that feels in total divine alignment. And let today's conversation be a lovely reminder that we are being guided with every step, even when it feels uncertain, and that we may not arrive with the answers, but that we discover more about ourselves and each other through beautiful conversations like this.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so
let's get it.
Record. When the airplane passes.
This video is some good stuff. We have 3 minutes of gold.
Welcome to Long Beach. Actually, it is at this time when the helicopters start flying above us because, you know, they make assumptions about what happens in our city at this time. So here goes. Okay. Welcome to episode 1 of the Your Story Medicine podcast.
Is it episode 1 or episode 2?
Technically, my intro was 0.
I love it. We're gonna go straight into the authenticity from the get.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've been pushing this thing off for quite some time, and today, actually, Shelley shared with me that exactly 2 years ago is when I launched the Your Story Medicine series. It was when I had no idea what my medicine was. All I knew is that I just wanted to compile stories of my friends and people that I looked up to who were on this journey of connecting with their ancestors. And today, this is what it's turned into. You tagged me in it and you're like, girl,
it's time.
It's time. Get over here.
Thank you for letting me lovingly call you in as you lovingly call me in all the time, even down to, is this podcast 1 or 2? Because June already recorded this podcast, but I guess that's episode 0, but she's recorded a phenomenal narration of her beautiful story to start us off by living the example of Your Story Medicine. And Your Story Medicine includes all of the procrastination, because welcome to real life. This is where I live. This is my studio. This is my pile of laundry on a Wednesday night. These are flowers I bought myself because I had a crappy morning. And that's what we do.
Okay, so let's start from the top. So this is
yes, a little too casual. Okay, bringing it back. All right.
Okay. So thank you for saying yes. This is so nerve-wracking right now. All right.
Can we start the podcast with laughter?
We're gonna start this.
Well, let it keep rolling, but we'll just pause and then we'll start all over.
Okay, we're gonna start all over. I'm clapping my hands. Starting this at 2 minutes. Welcome to the first official episode of the Your Story Medicine podcast. I am currently recording live from the beautiful home of artist Shelley Bruce, who has been lovingly holding me accountable in making this happen, to the point where today she actually tagged me in a post that was shared exactly 2 years ago, when I created my first project, my first series, which was called Your Story Medicine, How to Move from Trauma to Resilience. And Shelley was one of my first guests, and she's also a very close sister of mine. She is my Long Beach wifey.
Yes.
If you don't have a wellness wifey, I encourage you to find one. Especially because you learn that we get to release the need to do any of this manifestation work alone, and that we are going to get so much further when we are co-creating with folks who are on this similar path of reclamation. So, Shelley, tell us more about your medicine for our listeners who are new to the magic that you create in the world.
Yes, and you've got to have a co-working play partner, because it's just so much more fun that way. It's already so much work. Yes, I am an entrepreneur thanks to the quarantine that we are all in 100%. But really, I'm so grateful for this time and all the ways it's allowed me to be even more creative, because I am an artist by profession. I've been painting since I was 13, and I've been doing poetry since I was 15. And I just love to share my commissioned and or creative work with everyone. The themes I work in mainly are about identity. As a Black femme queer woman, I'm still working on embracing all of my identities as I'm learning myself. And also, I like to call myself a community organizer. I have always been passionate about social justice and spirituality. But I like to do that work in so many different ways, whether it's planning like series of concerts or events, whether it's doing workshops, whether it's planning my new series of events called Healing that we'll talk all about today. But I'm just a creative person who is a loving human walking this planet, doing my best to serve others in the ways that I am best at and that make me most happy. So that's a little bit about me.
And I feel like what makes this sacred container so unique is that we are intentionally doing this work as a way to connect with the ones who came before us, because so many of us have forgotten that even when it feels like we are alone, that we are being divinely guided. So tell us about your ancestral lineage and how that is currently influencing the ways that you are showing up in the world.
Well, perfect way to start talking about ancestral lineage is the hot sauce conversation, because June and I are co-working, and I definitely have a couple different kinds of hot sauce in my space. However, they're in my space because I have a Jamaican mother, I have an African-American father from Los Angeles, and on my Jamaican side, my Auntie Diddy, who is also my godmom, She passed away some years ago, and in terms of my altar and my ancestral medicine, I think about both aspects of my lineage, but I have the Jamaican hot sauce, the Jamaican grapefruit soda ting, the sand from Jamaica. I have a space in my physical home that represents and reminds me every day about where I've come from. And on my dad's side, being African American, Native or Indigenous, and white, Scottish actually, that also really informs the legacy, particularly of Black history, that is in Los Angeles and in the United States. And I think just looking at my father's side of the family, I can see so much of the ways that people have thrived and survived despite obstacles. So my medicine is, at least that legacy is from that space, and how it's expressed, you know, we'll talk even more about, but definitely very grateful to give acknowledgement to where I've come from.
By the way, right before we recorded this, Shelley did knock over a bottle of her hot sauce.
I did.
And there is no coincidence with anything, because it was a way to pour libations before having this conversation.
Yes.
So
however it flows, I feel like everything is a ritual and everything is a ceremony anyhow.
Yes.
Perfect. It's perfect. Yeah.
So you've been organizing these Day of Healing events from Venice to Long Beach, and I'm just so inspired by the ways that you show up as an advocate for a lot of issues that aren't being as brought to surface, such as recently we had Indigenous Peoples Day, and you shared what was happening with the Pavogna site, and as a result it grew their Instagram following, which is so
drops in the ocean.
Beautiful. And you have a lot of eyes on you. Let's just be honest about that. With that comes a lot of pressure to show up, and also needing to manage multiple energies, multiple personalities, because you're somebody who naturally acts as a bridge. I mean, you talk a lot about also like having light skin privilege, and you know, we have multiple layers of privilege that we are unpacking, and yet we're doing whatever it is we can to also use that as a way to not liberate just ourselves, but liberate those around us. And it's not easy. As somebody who is highly sensitive, who takes on all of this energy, otherwise you wouldn't be organizing Day of Healing. I wouldn't be feeling called to do this work in coaching, because it's like, we can feel the pain of not only the world, but the people around us. And so what is it that you are doing to stay rooted and grounded in these times?
Oh, I so appreciate being seen and reflected and expressed in that way. I have been doing multifaceted things, honestly, to give some more context, for many years now. I mean, all the way from college. I feel like we have some similar reflections in terms of the nonprofit journey, or the for-purpose journey, or the creative journey. More recently, last, I'd say 3 to 4 years, I've done a lot of what I call community organizing, event production, concerts, open mics, protests, definitely this year more so than anything. And given that, I'm so grateful you acknowledge that in terms of the level of sensitivity and the level of pressure I am realizing even more, particularly in the social justice and political arena, because there's more than one way to solve these social issues, and everyone obviously doesn't agree on that. So it gets to be a lot. It gets to be a lot because as sensitive beings, I think everyone's empathic. I know some people have different levels of empathy. However, that alone in itself, just moving through the world for ourselves, our family, our community, is enough. But then when we decide to take it the next step and affect larger communities, it has, I've learned, been a lot. And sometimes I don't even realize what I'm carrying. So all that to say, I've definitely had just a lot more stillness. One of the gifts of this quarantine, that is an unfortunate time in our world, but it has allowed a lot more just nothing time to allow myself to have a different level of self-awareness. I've actually gotten to the place where I'm like, oh, I don't like this. Or this is not desired for me, where I usually wouldn't let myself even feel those things. So literally just doing nothing is part of my grounding practice. I think gratitude looks like also taking advantage of the resources that are near you. And I live in Long Beach for a reason. I can walk to the ocean from this beautiful house that I live on in Belmont Heights with my housemates. Shout out to Belmont Heights. And I try to go to the ocean as much as possible. I really truly believe in physically touching nature that is not concrete, wood, walls, technology every single day. If you only have a tree on your balcony, go to the tree, touch the tree, connect with the tree. So I go to the ocean as much as possible. So yeah, doing nothing, going to the ocean, and also doing my best to practice what I preach. You know, I lead meditations, definitely will talk about this, write poetry, paint, study art. I do my best to participate in things that I lead for others and tell others to do. Perfect example, I definitely had a crappy morning, beautiful morning, but overwhelmed just thinking about all the things that I get to do. And that's normal also, mind you, when you're all showing up to purpose, it's not gonna be pretty all the time. But I went and I was like, you know what? Not only did I deserve a healthy smoothie for my body, I went and got this gorgeous bouquet of roses and flowers, and they are here to adorn this, you know, casual evening in my home and in my studio. So yeah, doing those things to, yeah, love on myself the ways I would hope others will and would. So that's a few things.
Actually, let's talk about why you even started Day of Healing.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we've touched on a few different kinds of things that I'm doing in the world. So again, in terms of creative event production, one thing it started with was creating opportunities for POC, Black folks, women, queer folks to express their art. There's so many working creatives in California. Often we don't have access to certain spaces, certain parts of town, depending on the demographic, etc. So I was doing a lot of this event work that has been so nourishing and been creating like extended families for all of us. However, when this revolution was, I really been seeing more mainstream this year, 2020, of so much change, I combined that idea of the protest that's very much needed with this idea of community organizing and wellness. Mainly, it was like the first 2-3 weeks of protests in LA in June and all over the country and the world. And I literally, I mean, I like to sleep, but I could not sleep for a week. I mean, I'd be in the bed, I'd be on the phone till 5 a.m., just like processing. I mean, I know it's not healthy, but there was also part of me that was like feeding and processing everything that was happening, like the National Guard coming out and fireworks going off at 3 a.m. and just so many things. And in that time, I was like, you know what? I've done activism work for years. I've done all kinds of work for years. This is a traumatizing moment. And at some moment, something literally clicked and I had this sense of peace that was like, we need to do healing work. I don't care what's going on out here. We all need to sit down. We need to meditate. We need to wear white. We need to do something that creates reverence. And so on June 21st, I was able to work with a bunch of other amazing creatives and business entrepreneurs. And we had a healing day in Venice that was a form of protest that was extremely rejuvenating. And like over 1,000 people came. And every single person, for the most part, was like, wow, this is everything I didn't know I needed. And healing doesn't just happen as it needs to in our homes individually. I think it really truly does happen in the collective, where we can look around and go, you know what? I do see that the world is improving for the better. I can look around and see it in community. So those are some of the reasons I started healing and that we started healing these protests as a community.
I was there at the first one, and one of the most profound moments, there were so many, but it was when you had, it was like 1,000 of us, and you had us all close our eyes, and there was a beautiful chorus playing in the background, and we closed our eyes, and you just guided us back to our bodies. And when the meditation was done, we opened our eyes, and I heard people just start clapping, and like, no, this is not a performance. And you went right into your poetry, and you just commanded everybody to listen. And afterward, after all the other performances, it was so healing to be able to collectively walk to the ocean, to Yamaiga, and release our flowers into the water. And there was also so much significance being on that beach. So can you tell us a little bit more about the history behind that?
Oh my goodness, so many things. But again, you know, I was doing some different like healing circles in general, like socially distanced in the park before healing started, just throwing myself out there as needed, and everything in my spirit was like, touch the earth, touch the earth. I mean, obviously it's a form of healing for myself, but I knew that we also needed to do that as a collective. And so it was really monumental for so many people to walk to that sand and to that water and sing to that water and give flowers and offerings to that water. And it's Venice, you know, we chose an area that we felt was pretty central and would catch people. But in terms of the coastal cities in Los Angeles, you have Manhattan Beach, you have different parts of Santa Monica. There's even a place called Inkwell in Santa Monica, and that was a historically segregated beach. That's the only place that Blacks and probably other POC folks could go to once white folks decided the rest were segregated. Even in Manhattan Beach, there's all these articles out now. I hope you all have heard that Manhattan Beach was historically owned by Black folks, a lot of that property, and they were manipulated and, you know, moved off of that land, which, mind you, also was stolen land from Indigenous people. So, you know, it just goes on and on. But ultimately, doing protest is a form of reclaiming space that is ours, reclaiming space that we pay taxes for, reclaiming space that has been stolen from us in so many ways, even if it's through rent hikes, you know what I mean, and how gentrification affects our own city, Long Beach, and all these cities. So, you know, that space was very intentionally, without permit, you know, again with protests in at least LA County. To do a gathering, you're supposed to go through LAPD, the police department, and get a permit. But we don't ask permission from a department that we feel is operating in the most unjust and violent ways. We are reclaiming that space. So just being present and meditating outside, even if it's one person some days, you know, if you're out there giving your offering, people are looking at you like, what is this person doing with that tree? That's a form of protest in our own medicine, but really in mass doing it without that permit and taking up that specific or those specific spaces is a very powerful way to let folks see change happening in real time.
Yeah, and I feel like there is this expectation that as Black and brown folks, we need to show up in our anger and our rage, and all of those feelings are absolutely valid, but because that is the somatic response that is expected of us, it's, I feel, a form of protest to be able to show up as opposite of that. And so in this process, what is it that you have been learning to release?
That's a really good prompt as well, because in terms of releasing, prior to releasing is understanding the complexity of what it is I need to release, or that I'm even carrying. You know, we've all learned through this year, I hope this whole world has learned, that rage is very righteous. There is a righteous rage, and there is a space for that anger to be respected. There's an understanding as to why rioting is happening in a way that it hasn't ever been. And we also have to create spaces that remind us that we are healing through this. We are, even though I also think rage is also very healing as well and expressing it in some ways, but also we get to have a space where we are in that peaceful, quiet, still space. Because when we really think about the world that we actually want to live in, there's probably a lot more moments like that where we don't have to go out in the streets screaming. And the complexity of all that is sometimes it's healthy for people to see us express our anger so they can understand that it is a legitimate response to all forms of genocide and murder. And contrastingly, again, it's also shifting a stereotype about what protest is, what transformation is, what revolution looks like. All that, I'm releasing the need for people to see me show up in Zen all the time and still call me a goddess, still respect me as such, even in my interpersonal relationships, into my professional relationships. It's very hard for me even to let you all see my room, because I feel like it should have a filter or some form of filter, and you know, everything, the edges should be slicked down, and you know, everything should be perfect. However, most of us are living a normal, well, quote unquote, normal day-to-day life. And I'm happy to have makeup on my face or not makeup on my face. I'm happy to release the idea that if I'm crying, if I'm upset, if I'm stressed, or if I'm at peace. A lot of times people will say, Shelley, they'll see me stressed and I go, you know, that Shelley that's on stage is just so different than the Shelley here. And I'm like, look, y'all, that Shelley that is powerful on stage, that can like get the attention of 500 to 1,000 people with my own presence and my own voice, is the same Shelley that cries at night in her room when she needs to just get it off her chest. That woman that cries, that is upset, that is stressed, is the woman who has the empathy to carry complex emotions and then process and realize what work needs to be done. If I didn't feel deeply, if I hadn't gone through depression, if I hadn't experienced the pain and cried and all those different things, I would not have the fervor and the power to inspire other people. And that is one of the most important things I want to drive home lately, is that I don't have to, I release the idea that I'm not allowed to be complex, messy, great, and anything else, and still be seen as whole and still be seen as enough.
Yes. As I'm feeling, a lot of people are also feeling a release just by you embodying what that looks like for yourself, being able to hold multiple complexities to be true, that you can, like, that tears are in no shape or form a weakness, that your capacity to feel that depth of sadness is also your ability to be able to feel joy so deeply. So for anybody who is just starting on their own spiritual journey, what is one ritual, practice, or words of wisdom that you can invite people to embody in their own personal lives?
Well, first too, I want to go back. Well, just in all of this, it's not, I always feel it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable so many times. I know I'm still in the process of figuring out, and I'm more and more every month and every week realizing, and you remind me of this so often, June, is you can be in process and not be fully a masterpiece and still heal people and still serve people. You know what I mean? Like, and still be a powerful, like, even as you're learning your lessons, you can still speak truth that is helpful to folks. And me just even having the audacity to show up is like, you know what? There are so many things I'm still working on and navigating. And I also trust in my body. I can feel it in my heart space. I can feel it in my spirit. I can feel it in my mind that I know I have something to give that's necessary, especially in its complexity that's not always perfectly filtered. And I guess the offering I have was, this be a good time to read?
Oh my gosh, yes. And also, let's just celebrate how far we've both come.
Oh my goodness, let's talk about it.
2 years, because the fact that today you just happened to share that post of when we did that interview.
Yes, your story medicine.
Which now it's obviously translating into a podcast, because at that time it was like, urgency, you gotta watch the videos before it expires. By the way, if you are interested in seeing any of those interviews, you can go to yourstorymedicine.com, because I'm releasing all of them. Of course, so much of our identities, our sacred offerings has shifted. Why? Because we ourselves have blossomed, and with the blooming has also come the composting. But 2 years ago from today, not only did I release, was Your Story Medicine birthed, but it was also your very first book that you self-published.
I really have to go back and share that with folks this week, that it was October of 2018 that I put up my book. So it's so amazing. And in that season of you sharing that summit, I was sharing my first publication of poetry. So wow, I'm so grateful for, these totally synchronized full circle moments of where we were as entrepreneurs at that moment, as women of color, femme women in Long Beach, figuring it out to where we are now. We're still continuing to figure it out, but we've also gained so much success and so much clarity. And it's really nice to find, again, more ways to share our medicine and our offerings to folks. So in that time, I still have On Blooming available for purchase. And my invitation too is I also have a digital version of this book that I'll read from right now. And in this book, my offering or my invitation is not only creativity, but just simple everyday ritual. And so in my book, I have all these poems that I wrote even out of that space of complexity and self-love. And I also have activities, blank pages, affirmations, and remedies, which are rituals that go with some of the poems. So I'm gonna read a poem and a ritual. So this one is called Jacaranda, and it's on friendship. It's really simple. All that, I know, right? Perfect. It all works out. Even if you want to give up, to dissolve into the wind like dust, you are one cord in a tapestry, and the other cords, they depend on you to hold them up. They need you. Without all of them, your life is just a cord, not a masterpiece. My dear, how your presence matters here. So it's really simple. You know, we're all interconnected and we are one life, but we definitely rely lovingly on one another, knowing that we matter. And the remedy that goes with this poem is purple wisteria vines. If you can find them, wonder what they would say. Raw living food. Leave $1 and a note on someone's car. Play an instrument or a game with children. See your grandmother or the matriarch in your life. Write 9 beautiful things about yourself. You deserve compliments too. So, also being a friend to yourself too.
Yes, and buying flowers for yourself before waiting for somebody else to do it for you. And what I love about this moment is that we often look towards our ancestors for guidance, but in times like this, we can call forth our younger self and the wisdom that she possessed, to trust that time is non-linear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so true.
Sometimes I'll go back to my 5-year-old self to ask her for answers and what it is that she needs. Knowing that when I do that work for my inner child, I'm also doing it alongside the ones who came before me and the ones who have yet to come.
Yes.
So tell us about where people can go and receive your medicine.
Well, first off, June, thank you so much for this container, this perspective of medicine, always being such a beautiful reminder of all the realms of us being our own ancestors and the ones to come after us and the ones before us, and just always acknowledging those different archetypes. Very grateful for that. And for me, as artist Shelley Bruce, again, I am a painter, so you can work with me. I do commission portals and paintings in people's homes. I'm a poet, so I have a book called On Blooming that you can order online. You can get the physical copy or the digital copy. All that can be found on my social media, artist Shelley Bruce. Shelley is S-H-E-L-L-E-Y, Shelley with 2 E's, so artist Shelley Bruce. And other than that, I do a lot of different things, but right now my main focus is called Healing. It's a brand, it's an organization, but it's a form of protest that's based in wellness and the arts. We're doing a lot of events in Southern California, and we'll be and virtual, and we'll be expanding beyond that. But please tap into Day of Healing 2020 on Instagram. If this is not 2020, it's 2021 and you're listening to this, just find me because we're probably going to change that Instagram handle. But Day of Healing 2020 is an amazing, amazing experience. And if you want to, lastly, truly get involved at this time, like drilling that home too, this is a time of action. There are so many things that we can all do to aid in others' healing and upbringing right now. So definitely Day of Healing is a place where we share activism, we share actions you can take in your local community, we share free healing, we share art, we share so many different things. I just really encourage folks to truly be engaged. There is more that we can do, I think, right now. We take care of ourselves, but we can also do our best to take care of the world that we're living in. So those are my offerings right now.
And also, sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is take care of you.
Yeah.
As a loving reminder.
Yes.
Please do not be a martyr to the movement. And that, I know, is exactly why Day of Healing was birthed. So just know that we all have our role in these times. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for your sisterhood, for your friendship, for your accountability.
Oh yeah. And we made it happen.
Yeah, we made it happen, and we're about to pour more hot sauce as libations, not just to your ancestors, but to mine too, that also love all the spice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Island peoples.
Healing doesn't have to be a painful process. It can be fun
and delicious.
It can happen through sharing
Jamaican
food.
hot sauce on Mexican tacos.
Yes, and Thai food.
And Thai food and all the things. Hot pepper sauce. Get you some hot pepper sauce. Yes.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, we did it.
We did it.
About 30-ish minutes.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Oh my god, please do not erase.
Hold on to it and email it to yourself right now or save it.
Welcome.
I would email it to yourself right away.
And get a permit, but we don't ask for.
And that's the video version.
Share that with folks
Yeah.
this week, but it was
Oh my
October
gosh.
20th.
Oh, and right as my batteries